George Carlin. He was never not in the discussion of greatest comedian ever.
Smart. George is the smartest.
Smartest man I'd ever met.
You watch a George Carlin bit, you know he's not riffing.
He was genius at making you laugh and changing your mind.
He was an avatar for anti-corruption.
Like a truth machine.
My worldview was really shaped by Carlin.
He found injustice offensive, kind of like a biblical prophet.
I want to say something. He was so funny. Why did I like him? He was so fucking funny.
It's a weird thing with somebody as good as George, where even if you haven't seen a lot of comedy, you just instantly know that you're seeing something special. Like, whatever this is, this guy is one of the best that has ever done it.
First thing you notice in someone else's house is you don't quite feel 100% at home. You know why? Someone else's shit is on the table. Have you noticed that their stuff is shit and your shit is stuff? Get it off! Get that shit off of there and let me put my stuff down.
There is a Tonight Show that George did. He does the set, he goes over, he sits down with Johnny. Johnny compliments him. He says, oh, great stuff. And George goes, I didn't feel quite in control of that one. And when I was young and I saw that, that opened my eyes to a window of, oh, that was a performance. I didn't know any of that.
He was a gift given to me by my father. One day he brought home an album, and he said, do not let your mother know that you have this. Nobody was allowed to curse in our house, but George Carlin was allowed.
All I could think of was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits, man.
And I remember in that moment going like, that's what I want to be for a living. Not like I want to be a stand-up, but I want to be somebody who could curse in my house and get away with it.
Don't you think it's just a little bit strange that Ronald Reagan had an operation on his asshole and George Bush had an operation on his middle finger, huh? What are these two men trying to tell us?
You know, I'm a child of immigrants, and my parents have such a deep reverence for America and what it represents. And George was the first person to say, just take a look behind the curtain, buddy. My dad would deeply disagree. He would laugh, he would disagree. And I would kind of look at him and be like, but what he's saying is true, right? And my dad would be like, yeah, it kind of is true.
There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit?
The thing that strikes me the most when I think of George Carlin, he never strayed from his authentic self. Once he discovered his authentic self.
For me, that was always one of the things I think about in my own career is like, I think so many times as comics, we're waiting for the audience to give us feedback, but the message that I got from Carlin is like, no, you determine who you are on stage. Dress how you want, say what you want to say.
By the way, I'm not trying this stuff out on you. I'm not trying it out. I don't do that. The audience doesn't really figure into my plans. Here's the way I look at it. I'm here for me, you're here for me, and no one's here for you.
I remember he had a great clip on Conan saying, I can't come on TV and say asshole, and they bleeped it out. But I can come on here and say whole ass. And he was like, whole ass, whole asshole, 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 ass. So he was kind of saying it, and they didn't bleep any of it out.
I think it was dope about Carlin. He worked around it and still was saying the things he wanted to say and being poignant and being critical about the system, America, and what was going on.
I just liked what a genius brain he had, but he would still be that silly.
Hi there, how are you?
Now that I've been doing stand-up close to 30 years, when I go back and watch his clips, I'm watching it beyond what he's saying. I'm actually watching where he holds the mic, what the joke was before, how it ties together, and then listening to the crowd and how that all interacts.
There is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away.
His ability to do fugue-like explorations of an idea. I'd say that's something that I lifted purely from Carlin, stylistically, when I first worked for Jon Stewart. Like, there's this thing that happens in the world, there's a comedic explication of it, and then what's the logical extension of this insane thing?
Now, this next piece of material is real simple. It's called free-floating hostility.
I think he created for comics like the scientific method. Like, his methodology is something that I can feel in my own mind when I'm breaking certain things down. And that, I think, really influenced the processes of The Daily Show.
Carlin created all these foundational principles that my entire generation still uses to this day. He would have a raw vomit, then he would have another piece of paper that's kind of more refined, then he would have the act itself, word for word. And I still implement that method. Every single one of my specials, verbatim, is written out.
You have this counterculture icon. What you don't realize is he's an incredibly studious, really disciplined professional craftsman. It's so often when you're in a creative pursuit that you think infrastructure or setting up a system is the antithesis of comedy or inspiration or creativity or any of those things. And the lesson from him is like, actually, that's the opposite.
Even though his mind was at this other level, he was like a regular guy. He was regular person. The work ethic was like, you know, like blue-collar guy. Then when I met him, he was just like that. He was just like that. He was completely real. It's rare, you know, to meet their idols and have them be nice, cool, regular people. Hey, Stephen. Hi, George.
I dislike and despise groups of people, but I love individuals. And so cumulatively, I have gotten the feeling that I'm in this big family.
We got to know each other during that time period, which was probably 97, 96, 97. But I think, you know, in some ways, I never got over idolizing. He was not an intimidating person. Like, he didn't hold that over you. He was really open. But I do imagine it can get tedious, you know, eating lunch with people who are like this. Like, to you, I'm friends with George Carlin. We shared a sandwich, like friends. And to him, I'm sure it's just lunch. I had to eat.
He came to work with us on Dogma, and you know, that for me was career high. I introduced my idol to my dad, and you know, that was the guy without whom I wouldn't have known my dad as well as I did. When my dad met George Carlin, I saw a version of my father that I'd never seen in my life. I saw a fucking fanboy. You know what I'm saying? Like, my father always carried himself with a certain amount of dignity and shit, but at George, he was like, oh, we watch everyone. I gave the boy your albums. I'm the reason you're in, like, happy memories. So when George died, I'll be honest with you, it was, you know, it was kind of like losing dad again.
I had sent him a note about his last special because I loved it. And we got on the phone and we were joking about death. And a couple of people had just died and he was saying, gee, I wonder who the third one's gonna be. And it turned out to be him. And, but getting to talk with him on the phone towards the end was, you know, amazing. He was so mythical to me.
He's one of the few comics that I thought the trajectory of his career was just sort of like this the whole time. My favorite stuff that he did are his last 3 specials.
Yeah, that's good.
When I hear that it was too dark at the end, I don't agree. I think it was the final battle. And I think that he won.
You show me a hospital that's on fire and people on crutches are jumping off the roof and I'm happy.
I saw him as this Jeremiah, you know, yelling to the 4 winds. Lear. It was fantastic. Fantastic.
For me, when I go back and I watch Carlin and I watch those older clips, in a weird way, it's kind of relieving to know the world has always been confusing and fucked up. I actually feel less alone. His comedy and his analysis just allows me to make sense of a world I do not understand.
Absolute legend, everybody's friend, the world's uncle, the world's grandfather, the older he got, the world's conscience.
People sometimes say to you, well, do you try to make people think? I say, no. That would be the kiss of death. What I want to do is to let them know I'm thinking.